Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for Cherry Becker's 2022 Government and Public Sector two-day virtual conference. Today is day one, and if you are just now tuning in, my name is Madeline Robbins, and I am our technical producer for Cherry Beckert. It is great to see so many of you signed in again for this session. Some of you have even been here since this morning, so we are very appreciative to see you back here with us. We do have more sessions coming up. On Thursday, we have a variety of presentations planned. Each of these is 1 hour of CPE per session. We just wrapped up the session on fraud protection, and we're jumping into this one, a Virginia-specific APA update. Day two, as I mentioned, is going to be Thursday, kicking off in the morning, so we hope to see you return then. Here's a few quick items to note before we get started. To receive CPE credit, you must answer 3 of the 4 polling questions and also be in attendance for the full 50 minutes. We will be distributing CPE certificates within 10 days. If after 10 days you have not received one, please email cbhlearning@cbh.com. A recorded version of the webinar will also be available in about a week. It'll be sent via email and posted on our website. Now, if you do have any questions during the webinar, please locate that Q&A window down at the bottom of your screen. If you've been with us since this morning, I'm sure you know where that is. We will answer as many questions as we have time for, and the rest we will collect and follow up with you later. Just note that a short survey will be posted at the conclusion of the webinar. We value your feedback and ask that you take part. With that, I would like to introduce you to our speaker today, Rachel Ramey, Audit Manager with Virginia Auditor of Public Accounts, who will provide an update related to the APA's oversight for Virginia local governments and so much more. Please, Rachel, take it away.
Thank you, Maddie. It's great to be with you all today. Very excited that Cherry Beckert asked me again to participate in their seminars. So we're going to go ahead and get started, jump right in with our agenda. We do have a lot of slides in the presentation, so we're not meant to go over all of the detail. I included some information in there just for reference purposes for you all to take away. We're going to start with just a quick update about our office, an overview of what we do. A couple of things also as it relates to local governments that I just kind of wanted to give an update from our office as a whole. Then, of course, we'll move into the bulk of our presentation as it relates to the oversight of local governments and the various projects and responsibilities that we have at the APA. And then lastly, we'll end with just a couple of quick updates, not going to talk a lot about, but just wanted to keep you updated on where we are with this year's annual process where we monitor for local fiscal distress. So quickly moving into an overview of our office. So many of you probably are already familiar with what we do. I always sometimes like to give this update just to keep people, if they're not fully aware of what the overall mission and responsibility of the APA. So we are the independent legislative auditor for the Commonwealth. So if you're a locality on the call today, you issue your financial statements, your CPA firm, your external auditor, that's who gives an opinion on your financial statements. So that is what we do overall. We're giving that opinion on the Commonwealth's financial statements. So as you can imagine, that's a very large audit. A lot of agencies feed into and are material to the Commonwealth's ACFR. So that's the bulk of what our work revolves around each year. What we're doing now through December 15th, there's also the same deadline for the Commonwealth's ACFR as it is for the locality. And then also we are performing federal work throughout this time to support the statewide single audit. We complete and issue that audit in February of each year. And then along the way throughout the year, we do various other special projects. We're working on audits over the judicial entities as well as constitutional officers that handle state funds. And then, of course, what we'll be talking about today, the work we do for oversight for local governments. Just quickly, we want to remind, I've talked about this for the past year or so on presentations that I've given for local government. So a quick reminder that we do have a new APA. She was appointed, Stacy Henshaw, February 1st of 2021. That was when she began her 4-year term. So a reminder, we did still receive some correspondence last year. Any of the notarized letters that have been sent to our office, localities, you should know what I mean by that. And we'll talk about that a little bit later, or really any correspondence. We did note that some of that still had Martha Magridus, who had retired back in 2020. So just a quick reminder to update your correspondence to Stacy Henshaw's name as the APA. And then once she took position as the APA, she appointed actually 2 deputy positions. We prior only had 1. So the first deputy position is Latoya Jordan, and she is deputy APA over human capital and operations. The second deputy APA is Eric Sandridge, and he is APA for technology and innovation. And I'm going to talk a little bit more of why that position was created as it relates to our strategic plan. And this next slide is just for bragging rights, really. I am very proud that I'm still a part of the APA, who for 9 years running has been voted top workplace by the Richmond Times-Dispatch. So always proud to hear when our office receives that. So the next couple of slides, I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail here, but I thought it would be interesting as something kind of different to talk about when I give these presentations. It's also something that I've worked heavily on over the past 2 years, leading the project team that's been responsible for planning for our strategic plan, as well as implementing an oversight for our strategic plan. So what we're currently going through is our 5-year plan from 2020 to 2025. We have completed all of, where we are landing and how we're moving forward. The main objective of our 5-year plan this go around was specifically to leverage innovation and technology as we work towards a digital transformation of what we do at the APA, as well as considering those aspects of innovation and technology and really thinking about where's the future of the auditing profession going and making sure that we stay in line with that movement. So you can see on the screen, these are the 4 main directives of what our plan is covering. Directive 1, a summary of that is to enhance engagement with external stakeholders. Directive 2, leverage technology to strengthen internal operations. 3, cultivate innovative solutions to enhance project quality. 4, foster an environment that emphasizes knowledge sharing. And lastly, 5, the most important part, the most important assets of our office, and that's our people. So enriching our culture through a continued focus on human capital. So directives 1 and 2 is kind of where I just wanted to give a quick overview because a lot of what we're doing, the projects and initiatives in these directives directly relate to our work with local governments and our oversight. So again, I am very much involved, particularly in these 2 directives on how they impact and what we're doing with local government. So really, as a summary, what we're doing with Directive 1, we're focused on our office continuing to highlight the importance of our mission by enhancing our customer engagement and external communication to really make sure we're focusing on providing clear and useful information that many of our stakeholders, so whether that be you as the localities on the call today, if you're a state agency or another entity or any other general stakeholder, really making sure that we're providing that information that you need to make sound and reliable decisions. And then Directive 2 is focused again more on the technology aspect. So what are those opportunities that we can look for to strengthen our resources and increase efficiencies as we continue to promote collaboration within our office as we work on our internal processes and operations. So that's got more of an internal focus, more of those other process, which a lot of what I do with local government, that's not directly related to the audit projects. So that kind of falls under another directive. So that's why these 2 directives really touch local government. And I'll talk about a couple examples of that. You can see one example already on the slide as, under Directive 1. But to start off with Directive 2, something that we've already begun, a project, we actually kind of started it toward the end of last year and more bulked up into this year. And that is using RPA to look at various processes that we have as it relates to local government. And one of the main processes are data collection of all the transmittal data that the 171 local governments, cities, counties, and towns submit to our office every year to support our comparative report. So, we knew that that was a really good kind of test case, first thing that we wanted to start, how we can use RPA and the compilation of all of that data. So that's where we started first, and we can already see so many other opportunities, particularly on the local government side of things, where we're collecting a lot of data, compiling information, and how we can really use automation and RPA to help those administrative type processes, those processes that are routine, they happen the same thing every time. So I look forward to one of our specific data analysts that I'm working with, who is, she knows all things RPA, which I'm glad of, because I know about this little bit of it, but I do look forward to learning more. And then lastly, as it relates to Directive 1, this really definitely impacts local governments, because the idea of using our website and other digital communications to really continue to enhance our engagement and provide more dynamic information and valuable information to our local government stakeholders. And how can we continue to improve that and provide that information and resources? So obviously, one of the main areas is through our website. The first project in this realm that we're working on is updates, complete overhaul of our website. I'm not exactly sure the timeline of when that will be completed, but certainly is something that as we get closer to that, I'm sure I'll have presentation opportunities to talk about it a little bit more in depth, to keep the local governments and other stakeholders updated on, changes that happen visually and where things are organized as it relates to information and resources we provide you all. And then lastly, one of my main projects and objectives I want to see come out of Directive 1 is, again, how can we use other automations and particularly data visualizations to kind of help provide any kind of locality, whether it be reporting data or our comparative report data, provide that in a little bit better way, particularly our comparative report. We spend a lot of time on this project. We compile the report and the data, and the end result is an Excel workbook that we put on our website. So I really look forward to seeing what comes out of this initiative and being able to show that information in a little bit more user-friendly and dynamic way, to, again, to help support our stakeholders that use that data and information. So we now have a poll question, I believe. Sorry, I did not advance through the slides. I don't think you all saw this slide, but it'll be in the slide deck. So here's our poll question. What are you hoping to learn from today's APA update session? And I think you all have about a minute to answer this. And I see that I have one question. Is APA coordinating its directives with JLARC in any way? So I'm thinking you're talking about our directives with our strategic plan. So we're not coordinating because this is the APA strategic plans, but we do keep JLARC updated on our what our strategic plan is, and we regularly report to them. So I guess in a way you could say we are coordinating, because they know fully what the direction that we go, whether it be our work plan or where we're going with our strategic plan. We update them annually on that. So in a way that is coordination efforts. I'm not sure if that's exactly what was meant. So if you would like to expound a little bit more, hopefully I did answer that question. All right, the poll has ended. And I think I just closed the results, but hopefully you all said, oh, there we go. Okay, 58% said the first one, learning about changes impacting local governments. 19%, I get it, I just need some CPE. 21% stay informed of our oversight, and then a couple of you all just other reasons. All right. So moving forward, try to do a little bit better advancing the slides. I apologize for that earlier. So to get into the bulk of what we're going to talk about with our oversight with local governments, this slide just gives you some basic reporting requirements, an overview of what is required of the localities. So when I use that terminology, I'm primarily referring to the cities, counties, and towns that are required annually to have an audit. And that's under, you see the code sections where those requirements are laid out. So again, it's the cities and counties, and then those towns that they either have a separate school system or they're over a 3,500 population as stipulated in the code. So again, you can see the overall requirements laid out there. The important things to remember is the December 15th reporting deadline for your audited financial report, as well as submitting the transmittal data to our office. And then the last point on there, we've got another slide to highlight this. A recent change over the past couple of years as it relates to those towns under a 3,500 population. Many of them do voluntarily contract to receive an audit. So there was an update in the code to, if you do receive an audit voluntarily, whenever that audit is completed, to please submit that copy of your audit report to our office. So moving forward, a couple of updates as it relates to what happened during the most recent legislative sessions, General Assembly. Thankfully, not a lot that went on that impacted or changed from our perspective of reporting requirements and information that is required to be submitted to our office. Just a reminder, this actually happened last year with House Bill 1789 during the 2021 session, where if any of you all on the call today are a authority, board, commission, district, other political subdivision, so maybe it's a regional jail, a CSB, whatever it might be, you have that local relationship with a locality. So your audit deadline has now been extended to now 5 months after your fiscal year end. So most of you probably have a June 30 fiscal year end. So that puts you into November 30th for submitting your audit report to our office. I'll save a couple of my comments because we have a whole other slide about these entities. So the next point with Senate Bill 581, this did occur during the most recent 2022 session. So really, this is just a bill that hasn't changed anything now. It's just something that our office is keeping an eye on. We work closely with the compensation board already, so they will be not a part of this work group, but monitoring the impact and the recommendations. So this bill established a work group. I don't know exactly who is made up in the work group, but really the intent is to study the costs and fees that are charged to inmates in local or regional correctional facilities, make some recommendations, review that, and potentially, I suspect, changes would come out of that. So that's kind of why we are monitoring, because we have a whole section in our audit specs that relate to audit work over this area, as well as the sheriff's accounting manual that we publish, where if there's any changes in this regard, we would have to make substantial updates. So we're keeping an eye on where this work group goes, as well as communication with the comp board. So as I mentioned, there really were no significant legislative changes during the 2022 session that impact the local government audits or financial reporting. So moving forward, again, the next couple of slides are just kind of quick reminders of, where these requirements have been in the code or been in existence for several years now. So we always like to take this opportunity to continue to remind localities about the requirement. So this one, I believe, happened in 2019, if I'm thinking correctly. Yes, 2019 is when this bill came about. So it started with fiscal year 19 audits, and it's a requirement that if you're delayed in your audit, a notification about why the audit is delayed, estimated date for completion, needs to be posted on your website, if you have a website, which I believe most all localities do. And then also making that statement available. So by posting it on your website is making it public to your constituents, as well as by making it available to your local governing body at the next meeting, also keeps them informed and also keeps your constituents updated. And then sending a copy of that to our office. So all those requirements are at this code section now. So I'll say this past year, those who were delayed, particularly those who were delayed past the December 31st deadline where your CPA firm is required to present the audit results to your governing body, everyone did a pretty good job of keeping this information updated on their website. We do try to, as we're collecting the financial reports and the data after December 15th and after, we tried also to send reminders of when people sent a notification to our office that they're going to be late. Here's why, and here's their expected date. I tried to also follow up with, remember this requirement that you need to post this information on your website as well. So again, I think we saw a lot of improvement last year versus the first year when we had to implement it. But we did see a couple of localities that did not get the information out on their website. And, we received some questions about that. So again, just a general reminder. The next slide speaks to kind of the timing. This was also something where we've received some questions of, what is considered delayed and late and when I need to post this. So our guidance has always been that because this particular requirement is the provision for the audit delay requirement is also under the same code section as that speaks to the 12/31 date for your auditor to present to your governing body the audit results. We kind of thought, okay, this is, maybe a natural point in time that it, would point to if you're not going to make this date, because obviously you didn't make the 12/15 reporting deadline, then anytime after that would be, making sure you post that information. Obviously, the more conservative approach is to post it, as soon as you're not going to meet the 12/15, like on 12/15 or after, you're not going to meet that due date. So making that information available, particularly to keep our office updated. So we have an expectation of, okay, here are the localities that didn't meet December 15th. This is, when they expect to submit in January or February. Can they get the information in before our first publication of the comparative report, which is February 15th? So it keeps our office updated. And then again, the intent of this notification is to keep your local governing body and constituents updated on if you're delayed in completing your audit, why that is, and when you expect to complete it. The other thing, as it relates to your audit and financial reporting, is sending our office a notarized statement. Again, this is something that has been in the code requirement since 2017. So this is not anything new, but we do still see situations, circumstances where localities are not sending this notarized statement. So this speaks to that after your audit, your CPA firm has presented the results to your local governing body, you send us this notarized statement, because that's what the statement is speaking to. It's saying the APA, we are letting you know that our CPA, our auditor has presented the results. We're certifying, notarizing that this has happened. So obviously, a lot of times this statement cannot accompany your submission to us by 12/15 because you haven't had that board meeting yet. I do know we often receive concerns that it's really hard to meet the 12/31 deadline. So we are understanding of that. We cannot give an extension because it's not our deadline. It's a code mandated deadline. But we do understand that a lot of the governing body meetings happen after the holidays and into January. So as soon as you have that meeting, that's when you submit the notarized statement to us. So, no worries if you're not able to submit it along with your ACFR and transmittal data. That's not a requirement. It's only a requirement to submit it to us after the audit results have been presented to your governing body. So hopefully we often still receive that question throughout the year. So hopefully that provides some clarification. And then again, I already spoke to this. So this slide just gives a quick reminder of, we refer to them as small towns. So it's those towns under a 3,500 population. And if they do voluntarily elect to have an audit, they are required to submit that report to our office when their audit is complete. So we published this guidance document a couple of years ago. It is on our website. Just kind of gives, since small towns are not always used to submitting information to our office, it gives them a little bit more guidance. Also, I understand that many of the auditor CPA firms submit the report on behalf of the town, which is, fine as well. So next, our polling question. Polling question number 2. Cities, counties, and applicable towns are required to submit their audited financial report and transmittal data annually to the APA by what deadline? So hopefully everybody was paying attention the first couple of slides, because I mentioned it several times. So remember, this is cities, counties, and towns. What is their reporting deadline? We are not talking right now about authorities, boards, and commissions. And I see I have another polling question, or I'm sorry. So we received a question, are Virginia public universities required to be audited? Yes, so we do also audit all the higher ed institutes. Many of the higher eds are material to the state's financial statements, their component units. So we're auditing them right now. Some of the other smaller colleges and universities, we audit them on a spring schedule. What recourse does the APA have when a locality fails to submit an annual audit report? We actually have none. That was where, we have no ability to compel, to penalize any locality that doesn't submit on time. I think that was where, I believe the polling question has ended now. So really quickly, I'll come back to the polling results in a second. So I think actually that was where some of the members of the General Assembly who proposed that bill about the audit delay notification, that was kind of the intent of, putting some information out there that publicly that a locality's audit is delayed, because we have no ability to penalize, sanction, withhold funding, nothing like that. We just continue to remind localities that, please meet the deadline. And if you can't, just keep us updated and let us know when you can. So the polling results, I think if I do, oh, there it is. Thank you, Maddie. So 32% said November 30th. The correct answer, 60%, is December 15th. So remember, November 30th was the old deadline that changed during fiscal year 20 is when it changed. I believe we actually might have, is that our next slide? Nope, it's not. But remember that was, it was a bill that was proposed during the 2021 session, I believe. Anyways, it was during kind of the height of COVID. So that would have been 2020. And many people thought that it was just an extension for COVID, but it is not. It's an actual change in the Code of Virginia. So the December 15th deadline is the deadline from here on out, unless the General Assembly changes it again. November 30th is now the new deadline for authorities, boards, and commissions. And we'll talk about that in a couple of slides. So I just want to pause, see where I am on time. I need to speed things up. For our audit specs, this slide just kind of gives you an overview of, we do issue audit specifications, update them every year, and these are required for counties, cities, and towns that, again, are required to have an audit, and those other local authorities, boards, commissions, districts, other political subdivisions. They're required to follow these specifications during their audit. And it primarily relates to, a lot of state compliance areas and those significant areas where, we feel like extra audit attention. We need to make sure these areas are being audited because, perhaps it relates to a large amount of funding that the state passes down, or areas like VRS pension and OPEB, where many of the localities and other local entities participate, and we need coverage over testing the census data and things like that. And we do publish the specs on our website. You can see the link there. If you are a locality and are interested, we update them. Usually we try to get them out every year in June, the most updated copy for the fiscal year. And so those are published. So any locality or authority board commission can take a look and see what your auditor is going to be audited as it relates, if it's applicable, area related to you as a locality or local entity. So this slide just gives some quick updates to what we did for the fiscal year 2022. Not a lot of changes were made because, again, there was nothing that came out of the General Assembly session that would mean we needed to update or add new procedures. So nothing new was added. We did make some miscellaneous wording updates, clarified some things. If anything changes related to an auditing standard that needs to be updated, that type of language. You can see on the slide as it relates to the Commonwealth Development Opportunity Fund, there was some information that actually passed in last year's session, but is effective starting 7/1, which would be for fiscal year 22 audits. Again, that was just additional information, allowability as it relates to anyone that receives grants from that fund, but it did not change the audit procedures that the CPA firms do, because they're already testing allowability of what those funds are being spent on and the nature of that program. Same thing with guidance that was added for CSA. That was just new information, new specific eligibility that came about from the General Assembly session, but did not change audit procedures because the auditors are already testing eligibility requirements. We did make some wording updates that did impact some procedures. It didn't create new procedures. It just kind of updated the audit procedures to align with where these processes have become more automated in the system. And I actually just recently sent communication out to all the CPA firms because these changes, wording updates, did come in July. So they came in after we originally published the specs in June. So specifically as it relates to social services, one of the updates where the auditors test the requirement by VDSS to for employees to complete the information security and privacy awareness training. Again, it has to do with updates that are made where there's an automated batch process that kind of syncs together. The training has been complete in the COVA system, then it syncs over to the security access system to show, yes, this individual, this employee has completed the training, they're good to go, or no, they haven't completed the training, and so their access is automatically cut off. So there was some of the wording and the procedures had been outdated for changes that were made to that process. I actually think a couple years ago. So we made some updates to align to what the process actually is right now. And then we also made some updates to kind of signal to the CPA firms that it is possible specific social services might have more automated ways for granting access and for the employees requesting access. And so if they have a more automated process, then the procedures that are written are kind of more paper-based, if you will, which a lot of the local DSSs are still that way. But if the LDSS does have an automated process, then the auditor is going to need to update those procedures to align with what their process is. So again, just some wording updates that we added there. So next we're going to jump into just a couple of quick things about our comparative report, because I do want to make sure I leave enough time. Again, most of you all, if you are a locality that submits this data to our office, you're already very familiar with the process. So this slide just gives you an overview of the fact that we are required by, in law in the Code of Virginia to complete this report. And really this report, it is, not many states do something similar. It is, the idea of taking the locality's revenue and expenditure data from all the local governments and presenting that in a uniform way. So a lot of times that means it's not exactly the way that you report it in your ACFR under GASB standards. It's a specific reporting structure that we dictate in our uniform financial reporting manual. And it is currently the only reliable and consistent source of data and information about local governments in Virginia. And it is used very extensively by the General Assembly members at, House Appropriations Committee and Senate Finance, as well as other General Assembly committees. And it's used by other, researchers and people in the state of Virginia that review local government data. So the next slide, again, just gives quick updates of where our last report, which would be over fiscal year 2021. We are still missing some data and audited ACFRs for those localities. We have since received 4 of these localities, their ACFRs and data. It is still missing from our report because we have not been able to run an amended report. We'll likely try to wait a couple more months to see if any of the other missing 8, if they're able to submit, and then we'll run an amended version, update the data to include some of those late localities, probably more towards the end of the summer, which actually we're kind of getting there, aren't we? So September timeframe. And then one thing that is not on this slide that I wanted to quickly speak to is, especially if you're a locality, you're probably familiar with our annual survey process, where we send that out every year to collect data that then feeds into our transmittal preparation. But also very importantly, as part of this process is getting updated contact information for you all. As a locality, your primary person, whether it be in finance or financial reporting. Oftentimes it might even be, the county administrator or town manager, depending on your structure and who all you point as the main contact for us to keep in touch with you. So, getting updated contact information, and then importantly, making sure we have an updated audit contract or engagement letter and updated information, particularly if you've changed your auditor. So I say all that to say that unfortunately, I really wanted to get that out at the beginning of July. That obviously did not happen, but I will be getting those surveys done and out this week on our website. And then I send out an email to all of the, applicable contacts to let them know. So it would be great if, we could get the updates in by the end of August. But I do understand that you all have a lot going on. It's year end, your audits have started. You're very, very busy. So obviously, we'll work with, this is something that, it's not a hard deadline. We just ask that you get the information to us as soon as possible, particularly as it relates to your contact information as well as your auditor's contact information. And then quickly, for our comparative report transmittal training, we are again going to do what we did last year with a virtual training. We thought last year we received a lot of really good feedback. We thought it went really well. I'm not exactly sure if we will go back to an in-person training session. By doing it virtual, it really, really opens up to any locality around the state can participate, which is, we think is very important, because, we typically did the training sessions here in Richmond, so many would have to travel here. So last year, we talked a lot about the overview of the process and the comparative report. So we're going to be a little bit leaner in that information, because some of the feedback that we thought was very helpful that we received was talking more about, scenarios or case studies of actual transmittal reporting, whether that might be difficulties that localities have. Maybe it's areas that they don't fully understand how to capture, what's reported in their ACFR. How do you translate it to the transmittal? As well as, we often have frequently asked questions, or during our annual review process, we might see things that kind of, stem across all the localities where we write review comments. So that'll be a lot of what we focus our conversation around. We also will, similar to last year, open it up to if there's a preparer, whether that be a CPA preparer or a locality preparer that wants to ask a specific question, maybe related to a transmittal they prepare or locality transmittal, we'll kind of have that open discussion available as well. So we're hoping it's definitely looking more towards the end, probably middle to the end of October. And that's really just based on other projects I have going on outside of local government. But we should have some information sent out, more details about that within the coming month, I would say early September. So we will send that out to all localities as well as the CPA firms, because we do know some of the CPA firms help prepare that transmittal data on behalf of their client. So anyone that's involved with the transmittal preparation is welcome to attend, and it is a free session. We do not charge for it. So next, I'm trying to see where I could kind of go through quickly. Again, this just gives you an overview of how the reporting structure in the comparative report and the transmittal often differs from GASB classifications. So we report in the 4 main categories you see on this slide: general government, debt service, capital projects, and enterprise. One thing this is an update, a change here to point out. So as part of the comparative report and transmittal preparation process, your auditor, your CPA firm prepares or completes agreed upon procedures that relate to the preparation and compilation of the transmittal data for your locality. So if you are a CPA firm on the call, one thing to note is, or even if you're a locality and want to make sure you remind your auditor that we have updated. I will also be sending guidance about this to all the firms, but we have updated our template AUP report because significant changes were made with implementation of the AICPA's attestation standards. So there are significant changes that were made to the actual wording and content of the report. So that updated template is already out on our website. And again, I will be sending information out to the firms about that. The next couple of slides just kind of talk through some resources. Maddie, when do I need to start wrapping up? Time-wise.
You are good for the next 10 minutes.
Okay, great. All right, great.
Yes.
I must have done my timer wrong then. So the next couple of slides talk about some of the resources. We offer a lot of resources on our website, but just want to highlight a few of them as it relates particularly to your year end and your audits that you're going through reporting. But that's the link right here on this slide of where you can find all of the resources. And you can see here, I guess you can see my thing. Annual guidelines, manuals, other documents is where you'll find those resources if you click on that link. So some of the main ones, we are still updating our annual reporting and requirements. This is just a quick reference summary of all the various reporting requirements that local governments have, and kind of, breaks it down on basically like, don't forget this, don't forget that, and send the information, to our office by this date and all that good stuff. So we will have that out probably within the next couple of weeks. Also working on updates to the federal programs index. So if you receive pass-through funding from state agencies and you have a single audit and prepare a CFA, most of you are probably familiar with this resource. So we recently pretty much received all of the state agencies that we reach out to help us update this resource. We've received their information back, and we'll be compiling that and get that out on our website within the next week. And then along with that, we also get updates to the state agency if they have a change in contacts related to whether it's question related to funding they pass down or anything else. We provide that contacts resource so that localities know who to reach out to at the state agency level. So those updates again will be, posted to our website within the following weeks in the August timeframe. So another polling question, and then I see that we've got one other question in the Q&A. I'll get to that hopefully. So the APA made significant updates to the Comparative Report transmittal forms, agreed upon procedures to comply with what requirements? Was it requirements from the General Assembly, from AICPA attestation standards, or from AICPA auditing standards? So a little tricky there. So as you all are completing the polling question, okay, so I just have a question about someone's interested in attending our training sessions. So I suspect that is our transmittal training. And so, yes, I will be sending out information. We send it out to our general list of locality on our distribution list, and we ask whoever, we send it to, that please, forward it to whomever in your office that is interested. So Melanie, I'll try to make sure I get your contact information from Maddie through this question to make sure I specifically add you to the list so you get that information from us. All right, I think we are about close to being done with the polling question. Yes. So we had, let's see, everybody pretty much for the most part, the majority of attendees got it right. It is because we updated our AUP report due to attestation standards changes with that with SSAE 19. All right, moving forward. This, I'm sure many of you all might already be aware because the resources have been posted for a couple of weeks now, I believe, at least 1 week. So all of the pension and OPEB resources that VRS publishes on their website for 2022 financial reporting, those are all available now. We provided the link. I'm sure most of you are already familiar with where that's posted since we've been doing this for a couple of years now. So we actually completed our examination engagement in the end of June. And so thankfully we were able to get that out the door a lot earlier this year, which then in turn allows VRS to get the information out on their website for local governments to use for your financial reporting this year. Another thing, the last bullet there that I want to point out again to CPA firms with other attestation changes, there was a little bit, not a lot of changes to our examination report for the census data. It was mainly a main clause to add about your ethical responsibilities and independence. So we have updated that tool. That'll be again something else I send out to the firms to remind them when I send out the reminder about the Transmittal AUP. Cardinal State Disbursement Report, I'm not going to talk a lot about here other than the fact that so the point here says it's expected. It is actually already out on our website. Many of you may have already found that. So we received last week, we got year-end data from the state and we were able to put the report out there last year. So you'll see the quarterly report that has all 4 quarters in separate tabs. And then we create that annual, what we call the annual report, just to put all the quarters in one tab. Sometimes that is easier for the CPA firms or even localities as it relates to their reconciliation. So both of those are out there for fiscal year 22 year-end data. And then many of you might be familiar with, we also put the accrual report out there that will show July and August transactions for accruing for your financial statements. That will be available. That's usually available in early September, again, after we've gotten the data for July and August of the next fiscal year. So quickly here, oversight for other governmental entities. Again, we already talked about how the change in the deadline is now November 30th for these local entities, authorities, boards, commission, other political subs. Those entities that have a relationship with a locality, a local government. So it's not the entities that are a part of the Commonwealth that are authorities or commissions that roll into the Commonwealth's financial statements. This code section specifically still has the carve out where their deadline remains as 3 months after year end because of the nature of how that data needs to roll, financial data needs to roll up into the Commonwealth's ACFR earlier than from the local perspective. So we do collect the financial reports. This is always something we try to take an opportunity to remind you all about this if you're a local entity on the call, because we often do struggle with not receiving the reports as this code section requires submission to our office. And just quickly with our quality control process, because I know I am very much behind on running late on time. Again, most of you are probably familiar with this, where we annually go in and review the CPA firms that perform the local government audits. So it's similar to what they have to receive a peer review, but it differs because we're only looking at the locality or the entity audit that we select for the year. After we complete our review, we do publish our reports. It's a public report and we publish them on our website. So this next slide just gives you kind of an overview of what we did last year. We completed 5 audits, 3 CPA firms, and issued all 5 past reports. And then currently where we are, we've already issued 3 reports and we're wrapping up 2 audits probably this week or next week. And then we'll have 1 more audit to finish this year. And then again, thankfully, we've seen, good improvement as far as we haven't issued a pass with deficiency report in several years, but when we have, most of the time it centers around the need for the firms to improve documentation of what their test work and their conclusions are, whether that relates to following government auditing standards or generally accepted auditing standards, as well as single audit standards. Okay, so quickly here, I knew I would start to run out of time, so I'm not going to talk a lot. Most of you are very familiar. We have been talking about this process since 2017. So these slides are available for you all to, kind of read through if you're not familiar, a little bit more information about the process. So we did issue earlier this year our 4th report. This was over the results of, we kind of combined both our fiscal year 2020 and 2021 review of the financial statements and our ratio results, that our ratio analysis that we do. We combine those together. So that report is available. I'm sorry, I meant to provide a link, but you can go out to our reports website. If you're interested, I can also email you a link, but it's under our APA main reports website where you can find, if you just search on fiscal distress, it'll come up. So really where we are currently right now, we are still finalizing fiscal year 2021. I think I misspoke earlier. It's often confusing because we're always a year behind with the data versus the year that, that we're currently in, calendar year. So last year's report actually was fiscal year 19 and 20. We're currently finalizing 21 ratio. And, we'll continue to look if we see any trends where we need to reach out to the local governments. So we hope to issue a report depending on the results of our analysis by the end of this year. And we are still currently following up with 1 city that we actually identified in our processes last year. And so we're going through our follow-up and questionnaire process with them during this year. All right. I think this is the last polling question. And I didn't really talk about this, but if you read the slide, or, it's a 50-50 guess. So our early warning system for monitoring local fiscal distress is a 1-tier process that only consists of a financial ratio analysis. Is that a true statement or is it false? I see that many of you probably read the content on the slide a couple of slides ago. I see I have a lot of questions. Okay, that's just kind of asking about our for our training, Transmittal training session. So thank you for that information. One more question came from, can attendees earn CPA credits for the Transmittal training? And yes, we do. We are authorized through NASPA to issue credit, so we will do that as well. It's usually, I think last year was about a 3-hour class. It would be no more than 4 hours, but I think probably we'll keep it around 3 hours. Again, I will send all that information out to local governments. If you want, my contact information will be on the slides. You can also email me and I can add you to the list. But those of you that are sent in question and answers, I will make sure I get that contact information from Maddie. So we are done with the poll question. And yes, all of you said false, and that is true because yes, we do have a ratio analysis, but we have a second tier where we do a little bit more qualitative and look at some demographic data for anyone where we look at their ratios and they might be showing high in ratio points, which is an indication for us to be, maybe we need to get a little bit more information because financial ratios doesn't always show the true picture of what's going on. So then we have a second tier in our process. We describe that process pretty in depth in most of the last 2 reports that we've issued. So feel free to go out and read those reports or follow up with me if you have any questions. And then lastly, as it relates to this process, we are continuing to monitor if there, any impact, really just keeping in mind the impact of COVID-19 as it relates to the last couple of years and going forward in our analysis and, kind of trying to put into context when we see an increase in expenditures as well as, federal funding coming in. We recognize that this is kind of a one-time or, over a couple of years type of influx and may not be indicative of, if expenditures are higher than normal, not necessarily indicative of, something that we need to be concerned about. So this is just kind of, we don't necessarily have any specific ratios, we kind of already have ratios built in to look through this, but it's mainly something that we kind of take a step back and reflect upon as we look at our ratios and other qualitative factors, considering that we'll continue to see the impact of the COVID-19 funding and spending on the locality's financial reports over the next couple of years. This is just a quick slide that you could look at for reference purposes. Yes, the next few slides are just giving you information on our process that you can always go back and look at kind of more detail if you would like on what our process is about. So I really apologize for having to rush through. It looks like I answered most questions in the question box. Yep, I don't see anything new as far as a question related to the content. And so this slide just gives you my contact information. So feel free to reach out to us. Also, as a reminder, you all might have been seeing information coming from Jeannie Kim. Last year, she joined full-time on our local government team, and she helps me tremendously, especially as it relates to our transmittal and comparative report process and fiscal distress monitoring. So Maddie, I'll turn it back over to you and stop talking.
You were great. Thank you so much, Rachel. What a great way to close out our first day of the virtual conference. We will be picking up with day 2 on Thursday. So we look forward to having you join Thursday morning, 9:30 Eastern for day 2. We have 3 more sessions in this series. As always, we value your feedback and ask that you take part in a short survey that will appear soon after I close this session down. A reminder, CPE certificates will be sent within about 10 days following the session. If at that point you still haven't heard from us, do feel free to reach out to cbhlearning@cbh.com. Thank you again so much, Rachel. Thank you for being part of this session, and we look forward to seeing you guys on Thursday. Have a great day.
Thank you. Thank you, Maddie.